and particularly when we do longer Stillpoint activation seminars, is in each new venture, in each new thing that we go into, it's really nice to set the reference. We call it setting the reference before we start something. For example, today I came in, and part of the challenge, which is every challenge has a glorious opportunity on the backside, and part of the challenge of the event that we're doing this weekend is that there's probably 50% or so of folks who are totally new, who haven't really been to our seminars, who haven't really gotten that into the laser, a little bit. And the other 50% are some of our seasoned emissaries who have been to 20, 30, 40 seminars. So I've heard comments that it was a little new agey woo-woo, and I've heard comments like, when are we getting to the good deep stuff? So I'm in here kind of going like this. I'll go either which way. It doesn't matter to me that much. Yet, when I come in, my first priority, given those various different trajectories of things that are happening, which is no different than what happens in any given moment in life. There's a number of people in your sphere, and everyone's got their own agendas and things that they're needing and wanting. And how do we interface with that scenario without having our experience, our reference defined by those things? They're sort of people, but really they're things that are going on in people. And so one really effective way to deal with that is, as you get into a new environment and new space, is to start by saying, well, all right, let's take a moment here. Let's just come back here to neutrality. That's why often when I start a meeting with our team or conference call or seminar, the first thing I do in that situation, I take a moment and I drop. And I just sit here I soak in this. On the one hand, resting in neutrality. Everyone go ahead. If you're new, take a breath. As the breath comes out, relax, let go. And again, just drop into this space. The more you do it, the more this space doesn't feel like a little space in between the breath. It starts to feel like a big space, a window, a doorway into a big space. When I do a group, often with 100, 150, 200 people, I have no reference for what people are there for. So I turn it over. I say, neutrality, you come. You come here and open up this space and download the best things for everyone, including me. And I'll tell you, if you apply that same principle, practice in your life, in your business, when you work with people, in your families, child's having some challenges, some difficulties. I can tell you, I've only been a parent a brief period, and I'll tell you, trying to respond, and it doesn't always work. So I find in my experience, I just go here and I let them reorganize. Trust that others can reorganize in the moment when neutrality is present. That's really what I'm talking about here. I'm saying, what is that underlying essence that is simultaneously the same for all of us and unique to all of us? And to me, that underlying essence is neutrality. And so no matter what I'm dealing with, whether it's an individual client who's got a health challenge, whether it's a family situation, whether it's a work situation, whether it's someone at an airport who's having some issue, whether it's a group of people, I go to neutrality and I say, neutrality, you come here. This is your play. You come, fill this space, and then help dial in what's appropriate. I'll say this. There is no, in my experience, that I have found better tool and resource for qualifying what is real than neutrality. Neutrality is like a perpetual wave of scalar energy, which goes right to things and says, well, what is going on here? And if it's oscillating, it says, well, here, have the other side. And dissolve. Dissolve those oscillations to come back to what is real and true. And I'm suggesting not that you believe me in that. I'm suggesting that you give it a try. I had another experience this last few days. I mentioned Friday night, I took a good fall on my back. Well, I have done nothing but surround that space, invite into that space neutrality, and it's barely an issue. And in any other circumstance, that would have been something that locked up, seized up. So let's start. Everyone go ahead, take a nice breath in. We're going to do something we did yesterday. We're just going to open up this quantum field. We're going to open up this quantum field. The more we practice this, the more it becomes second nature. This is a form of introspection. Every day we introspect what's going on in our field right here. We take stock of what's going on in our field, what things are working, what things aren't working. So as you open up, this is our screen, like the computer. And just scan around. Use your perception like you would the laser and just scan around. See if there's anything happening. You might find an area of a little bit of tension or a little heat. Might be an organ. Could be an emotion, something someone is an interaction that's going on in your life. Just go right up to that area with your perception. With your hand, almost using your perception as you would your hands to go up and to kind of say, well, what's happening over here? When you do that, feel, stay open right there. Go right there. What is happening? Is it warm? Is there a feeling there? Maybe there's anger there. Maybe there's frustration. Maybe there's some confusion. That's all right. These are just things. Not the biggest deal. And just say thank you. If it's conveyed that to you, if it's communicated that to you, just say thank you for sharing. As soon as I do that, I feel suddenly movement. If you haven't quite landed on what's going on there, that's okay. Thank it anyways for telling you that something is going on. For me, as soon as that happens, as soon as that kind of real sharing happens, there's a release, there's an opening. Can you feel a little bit of that? It suddenly opens. It's shared what it needed to. Now I feel it dissolves, it opens, and I'm right back to my quantum field. That one point, it's kind of like on a mouse where you hit the mouse and the whole thing and then the whole thing opens and the whole screen opens. Suddenly, I'm resting right back here in my quantum field. And that's one little, like a little laser session. That's one little session with perception to go, to welcome, to tune into what's happening, to appreciate, and to invite it to drop into Stillpoint. Now I'm just going to rest in Stillpoint here for a moment. I literally every day take some space and I'll go through and it could be with physical stuff, it could be with organs, it could be with meridians, it could be with a health issue, it could be with emotion, doesn't matter, a relationship, anything. Could be, if you want to really expand your experience, it could be with the problems on planet Earth. Your perception, your reality is only limited to your perception. Could be an issue in the planet that feels very dear to you. Whatever you place your perception on and expand your quantum field, that's your experience. For me, the best things come when I rest here and I don't say, gee, I'm going to work on that organ. I kind of sit here and I just let, the more you get comfortable basking right here, for me it's like a bath. You just soak. I just soak. I can kind of feel, it kind of feels the difference between walking on land and going in the water. Suddenly in Stillpoint and quantum field, everything feels more like you're connected to it. Rest here a moment. See if anything else comes up right here that's been nagging in your life, wanting you to take notice. If there is, go up right to it. Again, with your perception. And welcome it. Say thank you. Thank you. Whatever's happening here, good or bad or whatever, thank you. It might have a message. It might have a feeling. It might have a sensation. It might be warm or cold or hard or rough. That's a sharing. If it shares, gee, it feels really tough and rough. Thank that. This area has likely not been communicating for however long. So if it shares that, say thanks. That's great. I welcome that. And then let it dissolve. And again, right back to the quantum field. You see how easy this is? Does that make sense? This easy tool. Why this isn't the first thing that kids are taught. How to use our perception to clear blockages in our experience. As I sit here, my energy is inevitably going right to the base, that root sacral muscle, that sacred muscle I referred to yesterday. So keep resting here in this quantum field. After I do clearing work, I'll often go and do more alchemy type work. So I feel immediately this base sacrum kind of going like this, going in and then going out. Your nervous system is really a big root. From the brain, down the spinal cord, down to the base bulb. Sacred muscle that moves. Craniosacral folks, osteopaths, even Western. For years, Western doctors said it didn't move. They've now confirmed definitively that this whole spinal cord pulses, just like the ocean tides. It's the exact same pulsation, and that pulsation, it moves cerebral spinal fluid up the spine and down the spine. Most people are so busy being like this in life that they never even realize that the center of their being is pulsing because they're so in their heads and in their emotions. It's why when you go to the ocean, anyone here go to the ocean so often? You ever find, we live in Hawaii, when you're real stressed, you don't end up going? And the days when when you go to the ocean, your nervous system starts to get that pulse going again. So people that are stressed, they go to the ocean and then they leave. you go to the ocean, you start to tune in the nervous system, and it starts, that wave movement starts to flow this central current. We notice it in Hawaii. If we have a really rough day, we have to say, we have to go. We go, and we end up going, and then we get there, and 15 minutes later, things have either dropped or we're back, and we go back to deal with whatever we're dealing with. It has powerful effect. Well, I often sit, when I sit in quantum field, and I'll feel this rhythm. I spent years practicing in fact, when I began practicing cranial sacral work, I was fascinated because that rhythm, anyone study cranial work here? When you first learn cranial work, it's fascinating. The first thing they show you at the first day of the course, everyone puts their hands on the person. Okay, where's the rhythm? And you sit there, they let you sit there for about 10 minutes until everyone's kind of looking around and you don't feel anything. And then, if the teacher's really good, they say, okay, everyone, take your hands and relax them. Relax them, relax them, relax them, until you're barely touching the person. And you're barely feeling them. You have to be so quiet and relaxed. And as soon as you reach a certain point, suddenly you feel this rhythm, right? And suddenly it's like whoosh, and it pushes you out. It's this very subtle yet powerful rhythm that's moving. When I learned cranial sacral, I was doing body work. I was very drawn to nervous system approaches to working with the body, cranial work. There's a number of systems. Like I studied something like a network called HMR. That's a system for unwinding compression in the nervous system. But when I found the cranial rhythm, to me it was phenomenal. Because any person that I was working with, all you have to do is find the area of the challenge and find that rhythm. As soon as you find the rhythm, it's just like neutrality. As soon as you find the rhythm, for me, you're home free. Because suddenly the area is going into its full flexion and extension. Well, in cranial work, they teach you something called Stillpoint. And basically what they do, they don't teach it to you right away, and most cranial folks don't really work with it. They do it for a minute or two in the entire session. They barely use it. And what Stillpoint is when you feel that rhythm, the rhythm goes in, it goes out. At a certain point, the instructor says, okay, now hold the rhythm in between the in and the out. When you hold that rhythm for a moment, the rhythm stops and suddenly the energy expands. Anyone experience this in cranial work? So when I experienced that, for me it was like miraculous. In fact, I wasn't really that drawn to cranial work. I was drawn to Stillpoint. And so what I did with people, for me it was like finding the delete key on the computer. Because as soon as you drop something into Stillpoint, it's like the out-breath. You can't hold on to anything. It's not possible. It's like a cassette tape. You want to re-record or erase, you hit erase. It flips the polarity, scalar wave, the information's gone. So for years, all I did with people, and I worked on thousands of people would come with their issues, their challenges. I'd go around their body and I'd find the rhythm. And as soon as I found the rhythm, I'd collapse it into Stillpoint. And then I'd go around to another area, I'd find the rhythm, I'd collapse it into Stillpoint. By the end of the session, the person would be like this. They'd get up, they'd walk away, they'd feel great, and then they'd come back in 2 weeks because they were all locked up and shut down again. And then I'd do it again. Well, I did that for a lot of years until I realized one day that my dharma was not to unwind people's contractions. I didn't want to spend my life unwinding people. I wanted to unwind, period. And so I went to India, as I do so often when it feels like I need to go to India. And in India, I heard a yogi say something. And the yogi said something very simple. The yogi said that they live in the space between the breath. And when I heard the yogi say that, to me, I had a flash. Suddenly, I said, wow, this guy lives in Stillpoint. It made total sense to me. I had heard the comment before, but I hadn't really assimilated it. And I assimilated, I said, this guy's living in the thing that I've been doing for the last however many years. And at that point, I just jumped in. I just said, of course, that makes perfect sense. I'll just live there. And if you watch, I tell you, every yogi, every mystic, every meditator has a word to describe this place. And if you watch them, they all have the same thing going on. They're not breathing very much. They're smiling. They're kind of like this. They're quiet. Their eyes are suddenly open. There's a physiological change that happens when you quiet and enter neutrality. Because all of those polarities, thought, emotion, those things cannot live there. And so they go. To me, this space of Stillpoint, of the quantum field, it is a phenomenally effective operating system for living life because it is the universal state. This is like really, we call it the quantum field, really this is our universal body. This is the material of the universe. It's who we are. It's like scuba dive. You go scuba, you have the equipment for underwater. You then come up. At each place you have different equipment. Then you come up, you take the equipment off, and you're there. Well, it's the same thing. We come down planet Earth. We got the physical body for here. We got these different faculties. This faculty here is the faculty for the universal state. Beyond the galaxy, the fluctuation of the galaxy, it's the neutral state. So every day, if you want to live with that neutral, non-linear cultivation for love, for bliss, for peace, for unity consciousness, for dissolution of karma, of polarity in us and in the people of the planet, then come here to this place and cultivate the universal state. It sounds new age, it sounds kind of esoteric, but if you really consider it, it makes a lot of sense. If you want to live in polarity, then stay in polarity. There's no problem. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to open up and live in that neutral state and become buoyant into the universal state, then open up to there. The beauty to me of this universal state is that it activates certain biological processes. You see, we have processes that work for us in the physical, linear thinking, which operates the direction of the body. Well, when we open up to this faculty, guess what? There's a whole nother set of biological functions which start to work for this experience, which aren't based on past, present, future. This reality is based on one moment everywhere in the universe, perpetually and beyond. And so it has a different faculty, what some folks call the subtle faculty. The frontal lobe kicks in, the energy along the spine kicks in, certain glands start to kick in, and these glands and these faculties ensure that this body is protected. This body is taken care of. So all we're doing when we do this quantum field process every day is to take a moment and to say, well, we're going to open up to this state. We're going to start to cultivate our garden. It's up to you. It's your choice what kind of garden you want to grow. And there's no right, there's no wrong. It's all perfect. If we're choosing it. To me, I'm not choosing one thing. I'm choosing that in every moment, I like freedom. I like the ability to respond, navigate, and return to a place that's not karmically inclined. I like to be in a place of neutrality, because in that neutrality, in the East they call it no karma. In that place, the real and the true flourish.